Lesson 21. The Apollo Missions. The Apollo program was a series of missions conducted by NASA from 1961 to 1972 with the goal of landing humans on the moon. Here are some key Apollo missions. Apollo 1. This was the first planned crewed mission of the Apollo program. However, a tragic accident occurred during a pre-launch test on January 27, 1967, resulting in the deaths of the astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward H. White II, and Roger B. Chaffee. The mission was intended to test the command module in Earth's orbit. Apollo 7. This was the first crewed mission of the Apollo program after the Apollo 1 accident. Launched on October 11, 1968, it was an Earth orbit mission to test the Command and Service Module, CSM, and the crew's ability to live and work in space. Apollo 8, launched on December 21, 1968. Apollo 8 was the first crewed mission to orbit the Moon. Astronauts Frank Borman, James Lovell Jr. and William Anders became the first humans to see the far side of the Moon and captured the iconic Earthrise photograph. Apollo 9, launched on March 3, 1969. Apollo 9 was an Earth orbit mission to test the lunar module LM in space for the first time. The astronauts conducted critical tests and maneuvers to demonstrate the LM's capabilities. Apollo 10, launched on May 18, 1969. Apollo 10 was a dress rehearsal for the moon landing. The mission included a lunar orbit and a descent to within 50,000 feet of the moon's surface. Apollo 11. The most famous Apollo mission, Apollo 11, achieved the first crewed moon landing on July 20, 1969. Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin landed the lunar module Eagle on the moon's surface, while Michael Collins orbited above in the command module Columbia. Apollo 12. Launched on November 14, 1969, Apollo 12 was the second crewed moon landing mission. Astronauts Charles Conrad Jr., Alan Bean and Richard Gordon successfully landed on the ocean of storms and conducted scientific experiments. Apollo 13. Launched on April 11, 1970, Apollo 13 was intended to be the third moon landing mission. However, an oxygen tank explosion forced the crew to abort their lunar landing and focus on safely returning to Earth. James Lovell Jr. from the Apollo 8 mission was the commander on this one, but his colleague, June Leonard Swigert Jr., a last-minute replacement on the mission, who calmly reported, "Okay, Houston, we've got a problem here." The mission became a famous example of teamwork and problem solving in the face of life-threatening situation. Apollo 14 to 17. These were the remaining moon landing missions of the Apollo program. Each mission followed a similar pattern of landing on the moon, conducting experiments and collecting samples. Notable moments include the discovery of the Genesis rock on Apollo 15 and the use of the lunar roving vehicle on Apollo 15, 16 and 17 to explore greater distances on the moon's surface. The Apollo program concluded with Apollo 17 in December 1972. In total, 12 astronauts walked on the moon during the Apollo missions, leaving a lasting legacy of human exploration and scientific discovery. The 1969 moon landing. The 1969 moon landing was a historic event that took place on July 20, 1969. It was when astronauts from the United States went on a mission called Apollo 11, became the first humans to set foot on the moon. The astronauts who went to the moon were Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. They travelled in a special spacecraft called the Apollo Lunar Module, which was designed to land on the moon. The journey to the moon took about 4 days. Once they reached the moon, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin got into a smaller spacecraft called the lunar module and began their descent to the lunar surface. As the lunar module approached the moon, Neil Armstrong radioed back to Earth the famous words, "That's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind." He then stepped off the lunar module's ladder and became the first person to walk on the moon. Buzz Aldrin joined him a few minutes later. While on the moon, the astronauts collected samples of moon rocks, conducted experiments and took photographs. They also planted an American flag to mark their achievement. After spending about 2.5 hours on the moon's surface, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin returned to the lunar module and eventually reunited with Michael Collins, who'd been orbiting the moon in the command module. The astronauts then began their journey back to Earth. They splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969, where they were picked up by a recovery team. The 1969 moon landing was a remarkable achievement for humanity. It showed that humans could travel to other celestial bodies and opened up new possibilities for space exploration. It inspired people all around the world and remains one of the most significant events in history. Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was an American astronaut and the first person to walk on the moon. He was born on August 5, 1930, in Ohio. Even as a young boy, Neil was always curious about aeroplanes and space. Neil's passion for flying led him to get his pilot's license when he was just 16 years old, even before he could drive a car. He studied aeronautical engineering in college and became a test pilot for the United States Navy. In 1962, NASA selected Neil Armstrong to be an astronaut. He joined the Gemini program, which was a series of missions to practice space travel and docking spacecraft. Neil was the command pilot for the Gemini 8 mission, where he successfully docked his spacecraft with another one in orbit. But Neil's biggest and most famous mission was Apollo 11. On July 20, 1969, Neil Armstrong, along with Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, set off on a journey to the moon. They planted an American flag and left a plaque that said, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969. We came in peace for all of mankind." After their successful mission, Neil Armstrong became a hero and a symbol of human achievement. He received many honours and awards for his historic moon landing, but he was always humble and preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Neil Armstrong retired from NASA in 1971 and went on to teach aerospace engineering at the University of Cincinnati. He passed away on August 25, 2012, but his legacy as the first person to walk on the moon will always be remembered. Neil Armstrong showed us that with determination, hard work and a love for exploration, we can achieve great things. He inspired generations of astronauts and scientists to reach for the stars and explore the unknown. Moon exploration. Since the historic Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, there have been several other moon explorations and missions. Here are some notable moon explorations that have taken place. The lunar program. The lunar program was a series of unmanned missions by the Soviet Union from 1959 to 1976. The program included both flyby and landing missions to the moon. The Lunar 2 mission in 1959 was the first human-made object to reach the moon's surface, and Lunar 24 in 1976 was the last mission of the program, which returned lunar soil samples to Earth. The Chang'e program. The Chang'e program is a series of lunar exploration missions by China. The program is named after the Chinese moon goddess Chang'e. The Chang'e's missions have included both orbiters and landers. Chang'e 3, launched in 2013, was the first Chinese spacecraft to land on the moon and deployed a rover called U2. China has since launched additional missions, including Chang'e 4, which made the first ever landing on the far side of the Moon in 2019. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is a NASA spacecraft that was launched in 2009. Its primary mission is to map the Moon's surface and gather data about its environment. The LRO has provided detailed images of the Moon's surface, identified potential landing sites for future missions, and studied the Moon's resources and radiation levels. The Artemis Program. The Artemis Program is NASA's current initiative to return humans to the Moon and establish a sustainable presence there by the 2020s. The program aims to land the first woman and the next man on the Moon. It includes the Artemis 1 mission, an uncrewed test flight initially scheduled for 2021, but successfully launched on 16th of November 2022 after being delayed 4 times. The Artemis 2 mission, currently scheduled for some time after September 2025, will carry astronauts around the Moon. The Artemis 3 mission is planned to land astronauts on the lunar surface, but has been pushed back to no earlier than the end of 2026. These are a few examples of the Moon explorations that have taken place. Moon exploration continues to be an area of interest and research for space agencies around the world, with plans for future missions and collaborations to further our understanding of the Moon and its potential for scientific exploration and human habitation.